I think we're going to start. Guys, we're going to start. And if more people come in, then that's fine. So first thing is, thank you for coming. It's great to be here in person with you. I think after all these months and months and months of virtual and then half virtual, it feels really great to be able to see you all in person. And we've got folks on the phone, so I'm going to be sort of glancing back and forth, trying to do this as well as possible. And thank you for foregoing the beautiful fall weather to be in here as well. Full disclosure, okay? I went way too long this morning. I introduced my first slide, which I will do with you right now, and said, here's the agenda. Here's what I'm going to go through, and I'm planning to speak for about 25 minutes of time, because that's what it usually takes me when I'm talking virtually. And I found out that it took me almost an hour. So here's the deal, okay? I've told everybody in these front two rows, if it looks like I'm going over, do this, okay? If you don't see them doing that and you become aware that I'm running over, do this, okay? Because I don't want to hold you for too long. I know how busy you are, and my goal is not to bore you, okay? I just get super enthusiastic, and sometimes it takes way too much time. So please don't let me do that, okay? I'm even taking off my watch so I can look at it. All right, the agenda is one that I think you've seen in the past. It's the same one we've used for all of the town halls. We always start first with the mission. I think that's something that should always be the focus and the primary component of a not-for-profit organization. Of course, we also need to talk about money and how we're paying for everything. People is how we make the mission actually happen. So we'll spend a little bit of time there. And I'm going to go quickly through brand, which comprises fundraising, marketing, and communications, and do a little bit about the future. And then hopefully there'll be plenty of time this time for Q&A, because we got cut short last time. So I'm going to start with Angell Animal Medical Center. I'm going to start by showing you a sort of case comparison, last 6 months of this year versus the prior 6 months. And as you can see, the numbers are about 4% higher. And within that, 10% of the cases represent new clients. So we could stop there. We could all give ourselves a round of applause because the numbers are higher. But the reality is that these two bars just tell the very tip of the story, the tip of the iceberg. What it doesn't tell you is that, number one, we all know that there's more market demand for what we're able to currently provide. Even though we're all working on all cylinders all of the time, the reality is that there's more market demand that we could be meeting. And of course, if you're in a not-for-profit with a very specific mission like ours, you want to help as many people and pets as possible. So one of the things you'll hear me spending a lot of time talking about in this presentation is what we're going to do to attract more people to positions within the hospital. Second thing is that we expected that we would be in a different position by this time this year versus last year. So in other words, when we started the budgeting process last October, we really thought we'd be out of the labor crunch by April, that diversions would be a thing of the past, that our positions would all be filled, and that we would be back to humming on all cylinders. That is not the case. So when I said that this doesn't tell the whole story, it doesn't tell you the story of where we are versus budget, because we did budget for a greater number of cases and a 4% increase. We budgeted for a lower vacancy rate than we currently have, which obviously is troubling. We budgeted in a way that we thought, as I said, diversions would be gone by now or used only on an exception basis only. And we budgeted with an expectation that we'd turn around and go back into more of an expansionary kind of operation. Obviously, that didn't happen. So from a budget standpoint, what you'll see is that things don't look as good this year as they did this time last year. So I mentioned the labor piece, and I will tell you that without hyperbole, I can say definitively that retaining and recruiting staff is our #1 strategic priority for 2023. The good news is that a lot of work is already happening. And I really do believe we have the building blocks in place to make a major difference here. And recruitment and retention are two very different strategies. So let me actually talk about each one separately. I'll start with retention. Number one, we have a priority to try to reduce the overall turnover at the organization, particularly within the hospital. The good news is that we've had some success. The work that we've done with Penn Foster, the work that we've done with adjusting compensation and benefits, the work that we've done to improve the workplace, some of the things we've done to build efficiencies and increase supervision. I really do believe that those are seeds that have now been firmly planted and will work in our favor. So from a retention standpoint, I'm not as terrified as I was this time last year, though I'm still a little bit terrified, okay? The recruitment piece is the hard part. So we have a phenomenal recruitment team in HR that's working on all cylinders to get the word out about opportunities at Angell. And they've done some amazing things that we've never done before. First of all, they own social media. Secondly, we've got a presence at basically all of the conferences around the country. Third, we're getting word out and putting incentives in place so that everyone understands that this is an attractive place to work. And we're doing some very non-traditional things like making contacts at the vet tech programs and being supportive of those programs in ways that we've never done before. But it's taking a while for the recruitment pipeline to build. A lot of people left the profession, or at least left the programs during the pandemic. Some people left the profession and went to virtual positions. And I truly believe that the increased competition for a particular technician talent is so great right now that people are kind of don't know which way to turn. So we are absolutely going to be burning all cylinders to make sure that we're at the top of our game from a recruitment standpoint in 2023. We've stepped up our supervision of our technicians. Again, that's kind of an Achilles heel position right now because the vacancy rate's so high. We think increased supervision is going to work hard for us. We've reopened Essex, which was closed during the summer because we lost a doctor, but we do now have a new doctor that's on staff, and she, according to Anne Marie, is doing a phenomenal job and even started seeing clients the very first week that she was on board. And West, the staffing situation actually looks much better than it did a year ago. We've got a new surgeon on staff, which will be wonderful for revenue, and more importantly, we've improved our situation with support staff. So I'm feeling like we're heading in the right direction. We just need to get there faster. In terms of other things around Angell, obviously you all know in the room that our emergency room and our intensive care unit are fully operational. They're more than fully operational. Every time I go by there or in there, I'm astounded at how many of the runs are filled and how many animals we're taking care of. It's just incredible because I keep asking myself, what happened the before? If this is the after, what did the before look like? We are in the process of planning to renovate the old CCU. We're going to turn that also into related space for the now ICU. I have to stop saying CCU. And as soon as we can get that done, which we hope will happen sometime next year, we will be able to open the second floor of the new space for grooming and boarding. And of course, we're always doing things to try to improve the efficiency of the work that we do. It'll make it easier on our people, but more importantly, it also addresses what has to be an attempt at higher productivity given the labor crunch. So Instinct is one of those examples. You all know it's an inpatient piece of software. It's a strong enough aspect of technology that we think it's going to have a meaningful impact on the productivity of the intensive care unit. So we're very excited about making that happen. In the behavior area, obviously, with a lot of market demand, there's going to be a lot of demand for training. We've added trainers, And we've reopened classes at all locations. So it's all good news right now. 526 clinic appointments this year and $446,000 in 2022 revenue, which is a 9% increase versus last year. All very important and all very much related to the mission at the MSPCA Angell. In our adoption centers, this map should tell you that we have really tried to reinvigorate again our national profile. And we're actually doing that because of the resources and the facilities that we have through Northeast Animal Shelter, our affiliation with Northeast Animal Shelter. In the before, we didn't really have the quarantining spaces to bring a ton of pets, homeless pets, into the state from outside of the state. We do now. And as a result, we're transporting more animals that are homeless into the state where they can find loving homes than we ever have in the past. It's a 2.5 times increase of where we were before the pandemic. And as importantly, having those facilities and having those transport relationships allows us to participate on a national level in terms of disaster response. So whereas I was talking to Kathy, the last big disaster response we did was way back in Katrina. Now it's routine for us to be able to bring animals in, whether it was just yesterday, the 41 cats that came into the Worcester Airport from the Tampa area. We had a similar kind of rescue operation in Kentucky. We're trying to clear out the shelters there because we know there's going to be a lot of displaced animals. And this kind of profile not only helps us take on more work and fulfill more of our mission, but it also allows us to do more fundraising, to ask for more, and to be part of the national dialogue on what's happening in terms of many pet issues, in this one particular, pet homelessness. We're also involved in a lot of special cases in the Animal Protection Division. We'll always be focused on special cases. Some of these are seizures, animals that we have had to remove because they were unprotected or in danger. Some of them were surrenders because we're dealing with pet owners or farm owners that fell into financial problems or were dealing with mental health issues. And for whatever reason, the concentration of animal that seems to be the most prominent for us this first 6 months of the year were goats. Goats, 130 goats that we were responsible to take care of and rehabilitate before we could actually put them out for adoption. And we spent months in the courts fighting to get the ability to have those surrendered to us so that we could put them out for adoption. And finally, that did happen. But the lawns at Nevins never looked better, I have to tell you. We also, as you know, participated in the beagle rescue. Beagles were in the news for, I can't imagine how long, and I just met the beagle across the hall that Pam just shared with us. Oh my God, they were so cute, especially the puppies. And my heart broke for the adult females that were in need of adoption, that had never been socialized and not seen light before, but we did it. We were part of the initial transport. We handled a total of 207 beagles that found loving homes in Massachusetts. And again, we participated in a way in a national rescue effort that it's been a while since we've been able to do in this way. And of course, we are chock full of small pets right now. Chock full, rabbits, guinea pigs, gerbils, birds. So we've done 4 fee-waived adopt-a-thons, and we've placed about 730 small pets already this year. 147 of them were in about the last 2 weeks. Community outreach. So, it's wonderful if somebody's able to afford what we provide and can get themselves to one of our Angell locations, principally Jamaica Plain or Waltham, but some people can't, and they need our help. And to that end, we have community outreach teams that are now operating in 7 different communities around the state in Massachusetts to bring that help, that relief to the people that need it. We are working in terms of counseling. We're working on distributing food. We're working on providing access to free vaccinations and free spay and neuters, to getting people into low-cost clinics. It's a huge part of what we do, because not only do we want to make sure that we connect people with pets, we want to make sure that people can stay with, that the pets can stay with people and the families that they've been adopted into. And the numbers are staggering in terms of community outreach. You could see what's on the board, but the number that pops out to me most prominently is the 7 million pet meals that we've delivered to needing households in the last 2 years. We also, as you know, have a very enriched, probably by far the most enriched law enforcement program in the state. And we are absolutely working as the leading organization in the state in terms of advocacy. The work is incredible. 275 animals were removed from unsafe conditions last year by a law enforcement team. Again, it's the tip of the iceberg. It doesn't tell you how many of the homes and farms that they're working with to keep animals in place and hopefully make sure that they're better protected and kept healthier. On advocacy, lots of successes this year. Very well-timed passing of the Beagle Bill, as well as poaching bills. We had a passing of a Greyhound simulcast racing bill, banning all of that in the state. And as importantly, a lot of work on the local level and a lot of planting of seeds for next year's legislative calendar when the administration turns over. Turning to money, obviously this is a different year than last year and the year before. In those 2 years, we were doing so well versus budget. But as you heard me say at the beginning, because of the labor shortage at Angell, and because of our incorrect expectations of when we'd see our way clear of that shortage, we're actually running behind budget. We've had to take appointments off the calendar. We've had to cut back on surgeries. We've had to take back on radiation appointments. You're all aware that some of our services are actually closed to new customers, and diversion has gone from an exception to kind of, a regular occurrence. It's not a great place to be from a financial standpoint. It's also not a great place to be from a mission standpoint. And even though our people and we are working as hard as we possibly can, I have to tell you, this is the #1 priority that the leadership team is going to be trying to address, a way out of the labor crunch so that we can get back to doing as much as possible for the animals that we're attempting to, and people that we're attempting to serve. In this particular case, you'll see that the difference between this year and last year, it's about a $5 million swing, so not insignificant. Revenues are up. They're up because our cases are slightly up and because we increased pricing. But it's not the way that you want to build revenue. You don't want to rely on pricing every time to make sure that you're seeing revenue growth. But we had to do it because of this, okay? Look at our expenses. We added positions. We made changes to compensation. We made changes to benefit. We added space last year associated with the CCU, which cost us more money. And we had to sustain significant increases in inflation in some of our costs and also supply chain shortages for some of the construction that we were trying to complete. So if you can sort of see the swing, you'll know that our expenses are way up, our revenue is not up as much, and as a result, we're underperforming our budget this year. Very different than where we were in 2021 and 2020, and definitely different than where we'll be next year, because we're obviously going to take a more conservative approach to budgeting for next year. In terms of key initiatives, you heard me say it already, recruitment and retention of vet techs, our #1 priority. I've spoken to the work that's already happened in both those areas. There is a task force that consists of both, that includes technicians and technician managers, that is constantly putting together ideas for not only making people less likely to leave the organization, but making the organization more attractive for people to join. And as I said, we've invested a lot already. The teams are amazing in HR as well as in Angell that are focused on this topic. Our benefits people are working like nuts. The recruitment people are now reaching nationally in order to try to find candidates to come to Angell, and it really has made a big difference. And I'm hoping that we can continue to not only make a difference, but see some of the fruits of that labor bear out in 2023. Our DEI work, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think you've probably seen some of what we've done this year. We finished a plan. We're in the process now of sharing that plan throughout the organization. We shared it with our board. It got 100% endorsement and approval. We're in the process of preparing training right now for the entire organization. We're working hard to make sure that, that we're recognizing in our HR policies and procedures all that we can do to remove any sort of bias or unintended preferences. And we're extending that to our onboarding program, as well as our recognition in a broader way of things like celebrations and things on the calendar. So for instance, next year we will recognize Juneteenth. This year and next year we will recognize Columbus Day as Indigenous Peoples Day. So hopefully we're moving in the right direction, and it makes me feel like, at least from being a contemporary with an organization, we're getting closer. The last piece I'll mention around people is that we are rolling out a new performance management system. You'll be hearing more about that. I don't want to go into too much detail now, but it essentially is a streamlined performance system. It puts a higher priority on professional development and feedback in terms of job performance. It gets everybody on the same cycle of merit pay. So instead of on an anniversary, everybody will receive merit pay increases around the January period. And the transition is gonna be bumpy, because this kind of stuff is bumpy, but hopefully our HR people are putting together right now the training and the communications to make that as seamless as possible. Fundraising, I'm going to let you read this list because I went into too much detail this morning on it, and I ran short of time. The takeaway from this list is that if there are funds to be had, we are going after it, particularly in the more efficient realms like digital fundraising. And it's paid off, because look at the results, okay? Our fundraising is running 18% ahead of budget. Now, again, we were very aggressive with our budget for this year. Probably not aggressive enough on fundraising, even though it was aggressive, too aggressive on the Angell front. But it helps that we have the fundraising now and improvements happening there that have been able to offset some of the shortfall in revenue that we're experiencing in Angell. And the little point at the bottom is just worth telling you that, you know, we have had 6 $100,000 plus gifts this year, and an organization like MSPCA Angell, that's a big gift. And it was the rarity in the past, and we've got a pipeline of asks that I think is going to make it hopefully a regular occurrence in the future. We're also back to doing in-person events. As you may know, we did Raise the Wolf back in May. We raised almost $600,000. We did a Cape Gala. We did a run on the Cape where we had an MSPCA team, and we're participating in the Fast and Furious road event, which is being sponsored by Harpoon Brewery this weekend. So we're starting to get back into the realm of doing in-person events at the same time that we're not giving up on the many virtual events that we introduced during the pandemic. And special appeals, that's a gold mine for animal welfare fundraising. We're telling every single story that we think has fundraising appeal. And while it's leading to a lot of emails, it's also leading to a real bump in our fundraising results. This year, we've raised $200,000 in special appeals, and that's a significant amount, again, given our overall fundraising budget. So we're going to keep doing it, and we can do it in an efficient way because it all goes out via email and comes in through the online channels. Marketing, I'm just going to speak to very, very briefly because I think I went into too much detail on it this morning. Marketing is supporting some of the veterinary tech outreach that's happening in the HR area. They're doing it by, we're doing it by making contact with a number of the vet tech programs and trying to be responsive to their needs, including the establishment of endowed scholarships at places like UMass, Mount Ida, and North Shore Community College. They're also working to support the HR group in getting the word out about how wonderful our benefits are. So one of the things I found out in, in some of my small group meetings is people kept asking me, why doesn't the MSPCA offer X? Or why aren't you doing Y? And I come back and find out we are. So one of the things that we're doing with marketing is trying to figure out ways to get the word out so that everybody's aware of the full benefits package that we offer. Marketing is also in the process of integrating social media so that we're one presence, and that includes the integration of Northeast Animal Shelter. They're also building pipes, it's invisible to you, between our databases so that Signature can talk to Razor's Edge, which is our fundraising database, and Chameleon, which is our adopter database, and we could start looking at the overall relationships that people have with the organization as a single relationship. And lastly, they're in the process of making sure that we're doing all that we can to make our digital communications as contemporary and as good in terms of look and feel as possible, because let's face it, communications is definitely moving away from printed and more toward digital media. Communications, Rob will tell me, don't even say anything about communications. Tell them we're working on every opportunity to get the PR out. They are. Tell them we're doing everything we can to support fundraising and adoptions and all of our other work at MSPCA Angell. They are. And he said, just tell them one piece of news, which is that we'll have a new intranet sometime early in 2023. So consider yourself informed. My last slide. Oh my God, I did so much better this time than before. So, one, we are working on a multi-year strategic plan for Angell. This is a departure, and it's really, really important from some of the things that we've done in the past, which have only allowed for sort of a one-year view of the future with Angell. By taking a multi-year view and engaging a large portion of the staff, the leadership, the board in doing that, we've got a real focus on what it's going to take to make sure that Angell is the leader, the top competitor in the animal health space going forward. And it will give us the time that we need to have supporting campaigns develop if in fact there are things we want to do to expand that require increased funding. Northeast Animal Shelter. So 2020, we started dating them. In 2021, we actually moved in with them and started to develop a very tight relationship. And now we're going to make it official. 2022, at the end of 2022, we're actually going to formalize the merger. And I couldn't be more pleased because it really expands what we can do as an organization and gives us an important footprint on the North Shore to expand when the time is appropriate. Obviously, in a labor crunch, you don't expand. But one day, it's hopefully going to be a little bit different. And speaking to other expansion opportunities, our aspirations are great. Some of the ideas that are coming out in the Angell strategic plan are blow your socks off great ideas that I am so anxious to do and that I want to do before I retire. So the trick is going to be, we've got to undo our labor shortage and get going, because I just think some of the ideas that we've gotten from the doctors, from the leadership, from the board, for making our mission more relevant and making our services broader in the state and outside of the state will make such a huge difference. So that's my spiel. That's the end of the formal remarks. I did a lot better than this morning, but not as well as I wanted to do in terms of my 5 minutes. But I'm happy to take questions, comments, and there'll be some folks that also ask questions over the phone. And I'm going to actually suggest that at least Anne Marie and Kathy, that you guys come up in case there are questions that you can answer, because I think the only way they'll hear you is if you're talking into this machine. Oh, okay. Question. So do we have any results from our pulse survey yet? No, we don't. It usually takes about 3 weeks for them to analyze the results. And I'm hopeful, but I'm also realistic. We want to do these every 6 months because there are a lot of initiatives that we've put in place to address the feedback that we've gotten back on the surveys. And I want to be able to measure, I want us to be able to measure if they're being effective. And hopefully I will always share those results with you. So I think the survey closed last week, which means in 2 weeks, I'll be sending out a note, just top lining the results.
And I lost from my property technician, I lost 7 in. So what is your plan on keeping people in the position? They might have very well.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really feasible to go.
Yeah, you just say anesthesia. I almost get faint just thinking about it because I know how badly we need more technicians in anesthesia. And it's almost like they're front and center in my mind when Kathy and Anne Marie review with me the work that we're doing in the retention and recruitment task forces. I'm going to let them sort of give you a sense of what's happening in those task forces, just so that you have an idea of some of the things we're doing.
Yeah, I think it's so for those who are online, the question is about the loss of technicians in anesthesia, where we have 14 positions and we've lost 7 people in the last 9 months or so. There's 2 things about that. One is, one of the issues with both anesthesia and inpatient is that they require very highly trained technicians. So we're not finding those people coming in necessarily already trained off the street. I think that they're a little intimidating in terms of what's required. And so oftentimes when we do find technicians and we put them through the training, it takes a long time to get to where we want with them. I think that there is movement within the hospital with some of those positions. So, for instance, we had one person move out of the dentistry anesthesia area and go over to RT. RT now has 2 anesthesia techs. Beginning of the year, we had none. And so the anesthesia team no longer has to tech for RT. We had one move over to surgical oncology, which is coming into the building. So those are 3 anesthesia techs that stayed within the building. I think we're going to have some success bringing in someone from a per diem position into a internal medicine anesthesia position. So all of those kind of, and we have one in neurology as well. So we've added 1, 2, 3. So that's about 5 anesthesia techs that we've added to other areas that will draw work away from your area and anesthesia proper. And so allow the technicians in anesthesia to focus on the surgical, the actual surgery cases. It's by no means a solution, like I get it, but I don't think the loss is as stark as it looks like if you just think about the people who departed from the anesthesia department. We don't have a lot of people applying for technician positions, and
let me do this. I probably should put a trap on that. If you know anyone, guys, for heaven's sake, I mean, we would so welcome the referrals. I mean, the reality is that our team, our people, our ambassadors for the organization, the best source of new talent come from the connections that you guys make. So if you haven't been asked already, consider this a plea. If you know of people and you can recommend them to us as potential people that we can hire, please do, please.
I was just going to say, I think that Jez, the manager of anesthesia, knows very well what makes his folks tick. And so he's making some changes to on-call, weekend coverage. He's doing everything he can to change the lives of those who are already here. And like Neil spoke of, we are beating all the bushes outside of the organization to look for techs that we can feed into the programs. There's no easy solution.
They have income to reach, which I find very interesting because I come from
Yeah, the technicians in our hospital do not have equal salaries depending on where they work. So the technicians that get paid the highest, at the highest level are those who have the most difficult jobs that we perceive in the hospital and are the most difficult to fill. Anesthesia and inpatient by far have higher salaries than some of the other technicians in the hospital. At the CVT level, yeah. So there is a continuity to the salaries that we pay to our technicians, depending on their skill level, how much of those skills that they use in their job, and where we have the most difficulty hiring.
That doesn't make any sense.
The anesthesia techs and the inpatient technicians have very different job descriptions. And while the anesthesia techs are on call, the inpatient technicians work overnight shifts. So yes, they are paid very differently than someone who works a daytime shift.
I'm going to take some of the questions from the phone, if that's okay, because I think Rob's got a...
Yeah, so we'll start with an easy one. Someone had asked if we could install more power outlets in the conference rooms because so many people left their window house. I don't think we can do that, but I think we could get like power strips, which would significantly. So maybe we should say that in the mic, and whoever asked that question will know.
Someone asked about outlets in the conference rooms, that there are not enough. And so we can't put more outlets, but we can put power strips in to allow more plugins.
The other option is if you utilize 4D on the 4th floor for your conferences, there are plugs everywhere in the middle of the room. So that conference room was set up for a tremendous amount of electronics. So that is another option for you.
Someone else online had asked, why does the hospital not celebrate Martin Luther King Day if we acknowledge Juneteenth? And I think the answer to that is the hospital has to remain open, but we do all have floating holidays. So we can use our holidays however we want on days that we want to preference or honor. So hopefully the person who asked that question feels that does answer it. Is there anything we should add there, Kathy?
No, the question I would have, or I would ask, if you have a question about whether you can observe MLK Day or any holiday, you should talk to the HR people. They can help you work through your schedules. Because if a holiday falls on your regularly scheduled day off, you get another day off. If you have to be here, these are non-exempt employees, you get time and a half. So work with your HR person if you have any questions.
Okay. Good.
We'll
go one more here, and then let's see if there's any in the...
Okay, great. I'll sort of read it. Abbott and Costello routine here. So someone had asked how they can join the affinity groups, the LGBT group, other affinity groups. What's the process for that?
I would ask you to get in touch with any member of the DEI team, and that is myself, Michelle James, Naja Ali, Christine Ryan, and Sanjay Menon. The team is headed by Naja Ali. Just send her an email. They will get you into the group.
I'm really sorry I actually didn't mention that as part of the DEI comments, because the affinity groups have been kicked off and they were pretty well attended.
And the only other question we have so far on the chat is about, and this is not my question, although I have sympathy with the person who asks it because it's one I ask a lot too. Can we do more animal product free foods on the snack cart at events, et cetera, et cetera? Everyone should know that at least our events, signature events from a fundraising perspective, are 100% meat free. They are not vegan, but they are meat free. We've only moved in one direction only in those events, which is toward including fewer and fewer animal products. With respect to the snack cart, I don't know if those whoopie pies are in there, but they're really good, and I just had one and it's vegan.
It's vegan.
Do we know anything else about the snack cart?
Yeah, I can just say that for the snack cart, the goal is to just provide as many snacks as possible and to as many different people in the hospital. And there is a small population of vegan folks in our hospital, but we make vegan snacks available, but the rest of the hospital enjoys the junk food. And the one day we sent out a wholesome cart of, well, there were some non-vegan choices still on it, like cheese, but It had lots of fruits on it. There were protests on the floor. So I'll just say to you that I have, the snack cart has to appeal to everyone.
I will tell you this, the snack cart is probably the single thing that has been added, that has gotten the most positive comments. So it astounds me that, I actually heard more from people about that than I did some of the other benefits that we added. Crazy. Anyway, I get it. It's the army, what is it they say? An army moves on its stomachs, right? Any other questions before I let you enjoy the fall weather?
And the whoopie pies.
And the whoopie pies. Okay, guys, thank you so much for coming and for listening to my motor mouth, and have a great day. I appreciate it. And thank you for all that you do. And thanks on the phone.